Good morning, welcome to Planet Mojo. Today I'm going to attempt to make the complicated header cap molding for the tiny house. As you can see, we got quite the mess going on out here. This is the router bit that I bought to do the header cap. And here is the results. After looking at it, this isn't even as thick as it needs to be. This is 1 1/16. The header cap should be 1 5/16. So it's a 1/4 inch thicker than this is what it should be. And I thought I could get away with this, but no, that's just not going to work. I may be able to use this bit for the second half of the cut. I'll look into that, but that's just not going to work. So what I've done is grabbed some of the router bits I had laying around. Yeah, we actually might do better using the bit that I got. This is what the header cap molding should look like. And yeah, we have a 1/2 inch down here. Yeah, this is a 1/2 inch as well, but yeah, that might be a better fit. No, it's not going to work. We'll do it just the way that I planned. And how I'm going to do that is with these two bits. This is a little bigger than it needs to be. So what I got to do is cut a 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch corner off of my board. Then I'll run this bit. The collet is going to have to come up above this. Yeah, it might be hard to do that. Hopefully I can do it. Yeah, I can't run it the other way around. So we'll see if I can even do it. And then once I have this cut, that would be this all the way down because I cut a corner off. Then I can go in and run this bit on this little flat right here and get the rest of this cut. This is a full 1 5/16 like it's showing there. Then I'll have to adjust the depth a little bit for some curtain rods that Natalie got, but I think this is going to work. This is the biggest problem, is if I can get the router bit up that high. You don't want to have a whole lot of shank out of the collet. Yeah, we'll see on that. I think we can do it, and what I'll do is just do it in like 3 or 4 passes, real nice light passes, and that way it's not putting a lot of strain on it if I have to have a good amount of the bit sticking out. So the first thing to do is on my test piece, we're going to mark that 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch, and we'll cut that out on the saw, and then we'll deal with this after that. Okay, I have my layout lines on this, and I'll be checking this against my precision square here. I'll leave a link to that below in case you want a precision square. So what I'm going to do is run this in, test it, and make sure that I'm not above this line, and then I'll run it this way, and I'll sneak up on this line, and like I said, I'll keep double checking with the combination square, and once I have it at exactly 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch, this will just drop out and we'll be ready to go with our normal parts. I cut these out of a 2x12 by, what was it, 2x12 by 12. It was a leftover header board for the doors here. We got one too many, and it's been sitting around in the way, but it was the only thing that had enough clear wood to do this. So because it was a 2x12, I cut it in half and got these two pieces, and each one of these will make enough molding for the tiny house, so I have a bunch to spare. This is 1 5/16. I resawed it, which is putting the board on the edge and running the blade way up and cutting it to thickness. So this is exactly 1 5/16 inch thick, and the width of the molding and the length are going to be dependent on what's there and the actual shape of the profile once it's cut. We'll talk more about that later, but this is it. This is what we're using. But for now, we need to get this rabbet cut out. You could get this cut out with many different tools. You could use a router, you could use a jointer, but I don't have anything set up for that right now, so this is the best way to do it. Okay, that is perfect. 1/2 by 1/2. Now, on these, we have the resawn side and the factory side, which is pretty bad. Trying to think how I'm going to do this. I should probably get this sanded up right away. On one side, we're only going to have about 1/4 of an inch showing, and on the other, we're going to have about 2 inches showing. But I don't want to take a huge amount of this off by sanding it. If the shop was set up, I would have ran these through the jointer and cleaned one side really nice, and then ran them through the planer nice and slow, and I would have perfection. But without those machines set up, this is what I got to do. So, okay, let me sand this stuff up, and then while I'm doing that, I'll mark my top edge, just put an X on it, and it may be different. Like on this board, it might be this edge here, and this edge on the other side. We'll just have to see. But yeah, these need some sanding. Okay, while I was sanding, I was checking for defects and stuff, and there's no way I can sand the other side of this. It's just too rough. So what I'm going to do is cut all of these face up. This will be the top of the molding, and well, we got a big defect there. And then these are going to be about a little over 2 inches wide, so this stuff isn't going to matter. And once I have the profile routed, that'll come like back to here on both sides. I'll sand just that little edge. I'll have enough meat on here to keep the sander steady, and I should be able to take off any of this roughness on that little 1/4 inch that's going to be exposed. And then we'll rip them to width. We'll rip them to width after that. So let's get our 1/2 inch notch on the bottom of each of these, and then we'll set up the router and cut that big cove profile. This is what that cut is for. It just gives there room for this bit to get in there. This bit's going to cut all the way back to here, and without this cut here I wouldn't be able to do that. So this bit is going to cut right about like that. So let's get this set up. So this is about as far as the bit needs to come above the table, which is not all that much, so this should work great. All right, here is my proof of concept here, and that is how high I need to route this. You can see, well, I guess you can see maybe a bazillimeter higher than that, but this is what's going to be taken off. It's going to go all the way back to where I just took out that material. If I didn't take out that material, the bit would be buried in the work, or I would have to raise it up like 3 or 4 times and take out all that material there. It's a lot easier to just take it out on the saw. And it doesn't have to be perfect, because the next bit is going to take off that edge right there, which you'll see in just a bit. So what I'm going to do is, I think I'm going to take this off in 2 passes. This is pine that I'm working with, so it's pretty soft. It's not going to be all that hard to cut, and that should do it for this cut. All right, I'm going to lower this down and we'll make our first cut. All right, we're having problems with the switch on this router, and the bearing is almost completely shot on this. It's got a lubricated for life bearing, but the router itself is pushing 30 years old. So I think life is just about over for this. So we got to use a cord like this. If you're going to be able to see that or not, but that is perfect. Real nice and smooth. And then our next bit is going to take off this part. This isn't full depth yet. We're going to go up to this line on the next pass, but we have 4 sides to do, then we'll reset it, and then we'll switch to the next bit. It's not even cutting, it's dropping down. This lock on this thing barely works. Let me see if I can fix that. I gotta get a new router ASAP. I'll be right back. Okay, we'll see if this works. I know back before I shut the wood shop down that the plunge lock was already going, but hopefully it's not completely gone now. Nice fence, huh? Okay, here we go again. This actually works out really nice for a temporary bench. Router's not going anywhere. And then my temporary fence locks it down to the table real nice and tight. All right. Got to see if we have our depth correct, and if so, we're going to run the last of our parts. Can't find my regular safety glasses, so I'm using tinted ones, which isn't really optimal, but that is at 1/4 inch. Got to go up just a bit higher. You can hear that the variable speed is changing. This is a variable speed router and it's set at its lowest speed, but it was running, at first it was running way too fast, and then I thought, well, maybe the variable speed kicked back in again, but it was going up and down in speed. This router is just about shot. Hopefully it makes it through this. If not, I can use a different router on this next cut. I can actually cut this one from the top. Show you how that works. This next one, I can put in a regular router and run it like that. And that might be what I do, because I can run this in my little battery operated DeWalt, or any one for that matter. Okay, we'll see. All right, before we were running it at 10,000 RPM, and now it's at 21,000 RPM, more than twice as fast. This is a much smaller bit, and the faster you run it, the nicer the finish is going to be. I'm just worried that our little screw here is going to hit the profile. So if it doesn't, then we're good to go, I believe. I have to see if this is the right depth or not. Get my safety glasses on, because you never know when your router is gonna die. And we'll see how this sounds at 21. Got a little bump at the end from how I went into it, but that's gonna work right there. Okay, nice and smooth too. All right, let's get this cut. Okay, I believe I mentioned earlier that this was pine. It's not. This is Douglas fir, which is why it was so chippy when I was routing it, but it cut really well, really well. I'm just going to hit this really lightly with sandpaper on the profile, very lightly. And like I said, I only need to hit a 1/4 inch of this, so I'm just going to go over this real quick. This is kind of concerning, these deep grooves here. Maybe I'll hit this with some spackle and let that dry and then sand it. This is all getting painted anyways, but let's see how this other one looks. This one right here got that big knot in it. This one is much more chippy, but again, that's going to come off with just a little bit of sandpaper. Looking really good. All right, yeah, I was trying to avoid that. With this really chippy wood like that, sometimes it'll take off a big chip and then it'll run around the bearing and move the piece out. So you'll get like a bump in your route. I got one right there. But I don't think I'm going to use this side or this piece at all. This one is much more chippy. We'll just use the best of it, sand it up, and we'll go get this on the tiny house. Okay, this one required a bit of filling. This one required a lot, but not a big deal. The filling is actually only like a 32nd of an inch deep, but if I sand that out, it's going to change the profile. So it's much better to do it this way. This will sand up really quick because, like I said, it's just real thin spackle. And when this dries, this stuff will just peel right off. So I'm going to let this dry for a while, and when we come back, this is where it wants to be cut, but I might go at 2 inches. But we need to know exactly what that reveal is, because we're going to miter this and then turn it, and that's what's going to return back to the wall. So that same overhang that we have in the front has to overhang on the side, if you know what I'm saying. If not, you'll find out pretty quick. As soon as we get these sanded, we're going to do that. Okay, we're ready to split these down, or at least this one. That one, the filler needs to dry a little bit longer, but I might not even need that one. And you could see just a little bit here and there where it was actually needed, but only a 1/4 inch of this is going to show. This is my cut line right here, and I believe that's 1 13/16. 3/4 will be on top of the existing molding, and a 1/4 inch will show. I'm going to sneak up on that and see how it looks. I'll match it up with one of the pieces that's cut already, and as soon as it's about where I want it, yeah, see, we might go a little bit bigger. I might go 5/16 on that. Yeah, I think I'm just going to set it at 5/16 and see how that looks. And if need be, we'll come back to the 1/4 inch reveal. This is still less reveal than Craftsman molding, but I don't have this bit. And until I do have that bit, this is really close. So we're going with this. Okay, we're going to go right there, 1 7/8. Raise this up and cut it. We have to cut it like this, and then we'll see what that looks like. That looks very nice. Okay, now I got to cut the returns. And what that is, these ends are going to get mitered, and then it'll have another piece of this same stuff mitered the opposite way and like turned onto it and then glued in place. And it's going to be a little wide in the back. Going to do that on both ends. And then once that's dried up, we'll put that in the saw right where the saw is and trim those backs off. And that way you'll have a perfect miter return back to the wall. So while I have these nice and long like that, what you want to do is get those cut like off the end. I'll probably take them both off that same end. So do the miter first, then cut it to length, then do another miter, then cut it to length, and then cut the miters on here. Otherwise, you would be working with tiny little pieces of wood. It would have a miter taking up pretty much half of the entire piece. It would be just a tiny little piece. I'll show you that over on the miter saw. Actually, I can show it to you here a little better. So this is our miter. You can see that it's mitered back towards the wall. And I would make my first cut right here. We have stuff that we want to get rid of on the end of here. So my first cut would be right here. And the distance from here to here is a 1/4 inch wider than this distance right here. So basically this piece needs to just hinge over and get fastened onto there. And the exact same thing is going to happen on the other side. And then that little bit will be trimmed off. All right, let me get these cut real quick. We'll get this assembled. It's already getting kind of late. And I'd like to get something done today besides just making the molding. Okay, I have a test piece. I'm going to try this tight bond speed set and try to just hold it instead of clamping it. But I'm going to also use some CA glue on it just to see how it does. Put a little bit on here too. I don't know if the speed set glue that we used at the wood shop, I don't know if that was tight bond or not. So I'm not 100% sure what the drying time is, but hopefully the CA, cyanoacrylate, or crazy glue, holds it, and I don't have to hold this for like a half hour or something, which would really suck. Seems to be holding pretty darn good. Beautiful. They make an accelerant for the CA glues. This is just regular old Loctite super glue. They make an accelerant for it to speed up the drying process, but I don't have any. I'm gonna have to order some. All right, This has dried for maybe 10 minutes, but that CA glue has really dried, and these are real strong. So this is already set up to trim this. We'll get this trimmed, and then this has to be painted. Then I'm gonna go put this on. This is the second coat of paint. It's getting pretty late out. I'll be installing this tomorrow. I went and test fit it, and it fits perfectly. Look at how nice that looks. Nice return. And again, the only thing that's going to show is about 1/4 inch on the bottom. The top will show, but you're really not going to see it because it's up fairly high. I don't know how much of that I'm going to show. I may just show the final once it's all done, because I don't have a whole lot left. All I have is the door casing and a couple pieces of base shoe. And what else? Base shoe and a little bit of the crown. Oh yeah, I think I'll show you tomorrow. I'm going to make one of these for over the door. And that is going to be kind of special because we have that crown going into it. And I'll show you how I'm going to do that, where I get that crown, or I get that, it's basically just a 3/4 inch quarter round, how I get that to blend in with this. So the trim is nearly done for the tiny house, and as soon as it is, we're going to be putting in the mini split, and then we start work on the kitchen. So we're going to do, like I said, one more video on this trim, and then we'll do a reveal of the lower level, and then we'll get to work on that. Well, get the mini split in and then get to work on the kitchen. So if you want to see any of those videos, make sure you subscribe and click on the update icon. If you have any questions or comments, make sure you put them in the comment section below. And if you share the video and or give it a like, it helps the channel out greatly. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.